There is a strange heaviness hanging over Celtic right now, and it is impossible to ignore it when you look back at this game and the wider picture that has been forming for weeks. This is not just about one defeat, not just about a cup final slipping away, and not just about a poor run of results. It feels deeper than that, more ingrained, almost like a collective exhaustion that has settled into the club, the team, and the support. Watching Celtic at the moment does not bring excitement or anticipation. It brings frustration and a sense of emotional drain. And that is something that should alarm everyone connected to the club. You can sense it in the performances. You can sense it in the body language of the players. And you can sense it in the stands, where the energy that once defined Celtic Park and Hampden has faded into something flat and joyless. The feeling after the final whistle was not raw anger or explosive disappointment, but something colder and more worrying. It was apathy mixed with disbelief, the kind of reaction you get when fans have already lost faith that things will change. For a club that thrives on passion and intensity, that is a dangerous place to be. The players looked like a group going through the motions rather than a team fighting for each other, and that disconnect is becoming impossible to hide. There are players out there who not long ago would have been backed through dips in form, but now even that goodwill has run out. Supporters are not turning on individuals out of spite. They are reacting to months of watching the same issues repeat themselves with no visible response or accountability. There are exceptions, of course, and certain figures still command respect because of what they have given over a long period of time. Callum McGregor is one of those players, someone who has earned trust through consistency and leadership over many seasons. Even so, he looks weighed down by the situation, and when your captain appears burdened rather than driven, it tells its own story. Beyond that, it feels like very few in the squad are untouchable in the eyes of the support. That is not because fans suddenly hate these players as people, but because belief in this group as a collective has eroded badly. When supporters reach the point where change feels preferable to familiarity, it shows how far things have slipped. The atmosphere at matches has become one of the clearest symptoms of the wider problem. Hampden, a place that should feel electric on a cup final day, felt subdued even before things started to go wrong on the pitch. Going behind early only made it worse, but the lack of noise and urgency beforehand was already noticeable. In recent weeks, this has not been a one-off. Game after game, the buzz has been missing, and it is not difficult to understand why. Two fans turn up wanting something to believe in, something to cling to, and instead they are being served the same disjointed performances and the same hollow explanations afterwards. What makes it even harder to accept is that this period should have been one of excitement. A new manager coming in, big matches clustered together, and the promise of a reset should have lifted everyone. Instead, it has had the opposite effect. Rather than feeling like the start of something new, it has felt like the acceleration of a decline that many feared but hoped would be avoided. From the moment Hearts scored in that earlier match, the mood shifted, and it has not recovered since. That sense of inevitability that once Celtic fall behind, there is no real belief they can turn it around, has crept into the stands as much as it has into the team. People leaving early has become a recurring sight. And while it is easy to criticize that on the surface, it is harder to blame supporters when there is no spark to keep them engaged. Leaving with 10 or 15 minutes to go is not about disloyalty. It is about fatigue. Fans feel like they are watching the same story unfold over and over again with no intervention from those who are supposed to steer the club. The frustration is not limited to what happens on the pitch. It is amplified by the sense that mistakes are being brushed aside, that communication is minimal, and that responsibility is being deflected rather than owned. This is where the focus inevitably shifts beyond the players and the manager. There is a growing feeling that the club is drifting, lacking clear direction or urgency at the top. Decisions taken since the summer have compounded one another, and instead of steadying the ship, they have contributed to the instability. The silence, the dismissive tone, and the apparent distance between those in charge and the support have all fed into a toxic atmosphere. Anger has not disappeared, but it has softened into apathy, which is far more dangerous for a club that relies on emotional investment. The arrival of Wilfried Nancy was supposed to mark a turning point, and in fairness, few would argue that a manager should be written off after such a short time. Sacking someone after mere days would send the wrong message and suggest panic rather than planning. However, it is also impossible to ignore what has been unfolding on the pitch. The team do not look like a group that has bought into a clear idea. The patterns of play are inconsistent, the connections between players seem forced, and there is little evidence of the collective belief you expect when a new manager takes charge. That is not just a tactical issue, it is a psychological one. Listening to post-match interviews and watching the players interact does not inspire confidence that they are fully behind what is being asked of them. Answers sound rehearsed rather than heartfelt, and there is a noticeable lack of conviction when they speak about improvement or belief. When senior players appear unconvinced, it filters through the entire squad. That sense that the dressing room may already be fractured is deeply worrying, because once belief in a manager is lost, it is incredibly difficult to restore it, especially in an environment as intense as Celtic. There is also the uncomfortable truth that this squad has been underperforming for a long time, stretching back well beyond this run of games. The problems did not start with this appointment, and they will not disappear simply by pointing fingers at one individual. Recruitment issues, lack of balance, and players who have not progressed as hoped have all contributed to where Celtic find themselves now. Add to that a manager who appears rigid in his approach, asking players to execute ideas they may not be capable of delivering, and you have a recipe for exactly the kind of spiral we are witnessing. The concern is not just about losing matches, it is about losing faith. When players do not look like they are running through walls for the manager, when fans do not believe a comeback is possible even at one goal down, and when the atmosphere feels flat regardless of the occasion, it suggests something fundamental is broken. Even with important fixtures still to come and opportunities on paper to recover ground, the emotional momentum is moving in the wrong direction, and unless that changes, the gap between potential and reality will only continue to grow. What makes the situation even more complex is the combination of history, expectation, and pride that comes with being part of Celtic. This club has always demanded intensity, character, and a relentless drive from everyone involved, whether it is players, managers, or supporters. That pressure has built over decades and has been a defining feature of what it means to be Celtic. Yet right now, it feels as if that very essence is being eroded, not by one game or one season, but by a combination of misjudgments, complacency, and a lack of cohesion. Every week, supporters come with hope, and leave with frustration. It is not merely disappointment at the scoreboard, but disappointment at the inability to see progress, at the continued lack of leadership, and at the absence of anyone who seems capable of steering the club back toward its values and identity. Watching a team that does not fully understand what is being asked of it or does not have the belief to execute the plan is exhausting, and that mental fatigue is only amplified by the media narratives, the post-match interviews, and the endless speculation around what went wrong, who is to blame, and what will happen next. The disconnect between the management and the squad is now painfully visible, not only in the lack of cohesion on the pitch, but in the way players respond to questioning off it. Luke McHale's interviews have highlighted a lack of conviction, while others like Austin Trusty and Liam Scales, appear uncertain, offering minimal answers that reveal their confusion as much as their disappointment. It seems that players are caught between obligation and willingness, between trying to buy into a manager's system and internally resisting it. This kind of environment is toxic because it erodes trust, both between players and between the squad and the supporters. The old belief that giving time to a new manager will automatically bring results is being tested to its limits. Wilfried Nancy may be tactically sound, he may have a vision, but if the players do not fully engage with it, the theory on paper becomes irrelevant. The disconnect is not something that can be bridged with a single team talk or a tactical tweak. It is systemic, cultural, and psychological. The supporters are caught in this as well as they oscillate between hope and despair. You can hear it in the stands, in the muted chants, and in the people leaving with 10 or 15 minutes still on the clock. It is not a lack of love for the club that drives these actions, but a growing weariness at watching a team fail to deliver even the basics week after week. The frustration has been building over months, and the cup final was just the latest manifestation. There is a long history of Celtic fans demonstrating incredible patience and loyalty, but patience is not infinite. The absence of energy at matches is a reflection of the disconnection between what the club promises and what it is currently delivering. It is not merely a question of results. It is about identity, pride, and the emotional investment that is no longer being reciprocated. The challenge for Nancy is monumental because he is not just inheriting a squad, he is inheriting a culture that has become complacent, fractured, and resistant to change. While new managers often bring a spark, a new perspective, and the chance to galvanize a team, it is clear that this group has already formed opinions and attitudes that will not be shifted overnight. The aura of Martin O'Neill, for example, carried weight not simply because of results, but because of the belief he inspired in players. That intangible factor is missing now, and replicating it is far from straightforward. Players who are underperforming and undermotivated are a challenge in any circumstances, but when combined with a lack of belief in the manager and an ongoing sense of frustration with the club's leadership, it becomes almost impossible to see a clear path forward without significant intervention. What compounds the issue further is the visible lack of accountability at the board level. Decisions made over the past year have contributed to the current malaise, from recruitment to communication failures to the handling of managerial appointments. The perception among supporters is not just that mistakes are being made, but that there is a dismissive attitude toward those mistakes, a reluctance to engage meaningfully with the supporters, and an absence of urgency in correcting course. That sense of helplessness translates into a wider atmosphere of apathy where even loyal supporters feel drained and reluctant to invest emotionally. The club is not simply losing matches, it is losing belief, and that is far harder to regain once it has been depleted. Looking forward, there are still fixtures to play, and the theoretical chance to salvage parts of the season remains. Europa League opportunities, domestic cup competitions, and league points all still exist. Yet the question remains whether the current squad under Nancy can summon the desire and focus needed to compete effectively. Even if some tactical adjustments are made, even if the manager implements his preferred system perfectly, the lack of buy-in from the players undermines every plan. A player may execute drills in training, but translating that to competitive intensity and belief in crucial matches is another matter entirely. Without that internal conviction, Celtic is fighting uphill in every single game, and supporters are feeling the strain of that continuous uphill battle. The concern is also compounded by the mental state of the squad. Confidence is fragile, and in a team already struggling with form and belief, every setback becomes magnified. When Hearts or other rivals score early, when errors are made, or when momentum shifts against them, the reaction is often flat and disengaged rather than resilient and proactive. Players appear unable or unwilling to step up, and even the leadership figures in the squad are struggling to galvanize their teammates. The sense that they are already resigned to outcomes rather than actively fighting for improvement is palpable. This is a stark contrast to previous eras, where even in difficult times, the ethos of fighting until the final whistle defined the team's approach. Before we proceed, subscribe to our channel and enable notifications to receive all exclusive news about Celtic FC. Don't miss any details about your favorite team. It's extremely important for Celtic FC fans. There's a low, restless hum drifting through the east end of Glasgow, the kind that usually means something stirring behind closed doors at Celtic Park. Whispers have been bouncing from pub to pub, training ground to taxi rank, all circling the same astonishing name. LUKA Modric, a name that feels almost unreal when spoken with a Glasgow lilt. Yet the word is that the Croatian maestro has put pen to paper with Celtic, a move few would have dared to imagine. Out loud, nothing has been paraded officially, but the signs, folks say, know there if you can where to look. Quiet meetings, familiar agents spotted in the city, a sense that something significant is being carefully kept under wraps. Those close to the club talk about ambition, about a statement of intent that goes far beyond domestic bragging rights. Modric, even at this stage of his career, carries a footballing intelligence and calm authority that could transform the rhythm of a side, especially one that thrives on tempo, bravery, and belief. Supporters are already dreaming about how his vision might open up packed defenses, how his control could steady the noise and chaos of European nights under the lights. And some reckon it's romantic nonsense, others swear the deal's done and sealed, just waiting for the right moment to break. The idea of a Ballon d'Or winner pulling on the green and white hoops has a fairy tale edge, but Celtic have never been shy of leaning into destiny when it comes calling. Inside the dressing room, the rumor alone has reportedly lifted spirits, young players hanging on every story, veterans curious about what a player of Modric's caliber brings day to day. It's not about shirt sales or headlines, they say, but about standards, about learning from someone who's seen and won it all. For now, it remains a murmur, a shared glance, a grin over a pint. But in Glasgow, where football lives and breathes in every conversation, The thought of LUKA Modric in hoops refuses to fade. Whether myth or masterstroke, the Berberino feels different this time, heavier, closer to the truth. Hello, fan. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, as it means a lot to Celtic FC. Also, share your opinion about the news in the comments below. See you in the next video.